injections are best. No, creams are best. Well, pellets will get you the best results. It's definitely overwhelming when you get into testosterone replacement therapy, the wide variety of ways that it can be administered. So whether you're doing injections now or you're doing creams now and you're considering switching, or maybe you just don't know. Over the past 10 years, I've been trained in all the methods and use them in my clinical practice. And today I want to go ahead and break down the different ways to administer testosterone replacement therapy, the pros, the cons, the side effects, and the benefits, and to give you as much information as possible if you're doing testosterone replacement therapy, which way may be right for you. Now, I'd obviously say you work with a healthcare practitioner. This is information purposes only. However, some of the information today you may find helpful when making your decision. Now, today, the main areas we're going to cover are injections, creams, pellets, oral, and we'll do a bonus section at the end. And first, let's bring everyone up to speed. Most people at this point, if you've been at my channel, you've heard me harping about testosterone. Most men now have lower testosterone at their age than what their grandpa had. And this is a trend that continues to get worse and worse. So many guys are looking for a way to increase their testosterone. When guys have low testosterone, they feel terrible. Low drive and motivation, depression, weak muscles, poor sexual function. And when guys get on testosterone and it's optimized, they have a better mood, more energy, more muscle mass. They overall feel better and have better sexual function. Now, in my opinion, if you're considering these different application methods, we need to focus mostly on the goal. A lot of people like to look at levels only. In my opinion, you really want to go for symptom relief. So you have these symptoms of low testosterone and you're wanting to feel better. That's our goal. Now, we also have to take into consideration that different people have different lifestyle situations. And so we'll break that down in the methods. So first, I think we start with the old tried and true, which is my favorite method, injections. I'd say at this point, most men that are doing testosterone replacement therapy are on injections. Most do somewhere around 200 milligrams per week. And the old school method was injecting into the muscle. Nowadays, a lot of men are starting to inject subcutaneously because it's less painful and they're spreading out their dose. Testosterone cypionate and enanthate both have a half-life around a week. So for better symptom relief, you want to go with smaller, more frequent injections. With my guys, I like to do at least 3 injections a week. So instead of doing one big shot of 200 milligrams at once, we would do 66 milligrams 3 times a week. The benefit of this is more stable levels. The more stable levels lead to more stable mood, less side effects like secondary erythrocytosis, testosterone to estrogen ratio, better mood, less anxiety, overall just feeling better. So in most of my patients, I almost always start off on testosterone injection. One reason is I know if we inject that testosterone, your levels are going to go up. So if you're paying me money, you're taking the time to go get your blood drawn, you're taking the time to draw up and inject these needles. If your testosterone levels are 300, we put you on therapy and then we do blood work in 6 to 8 weeks and your levels are the same, you're not going to be too happy. Now, again, I'm going mostly for symptom relief, but there is correlation, obviously, with your levels to how you feel. So for instance, if a guy's coming to me and his levels are 300, I'm going to try and get him to 7, 8, 900 at that first set of labs 8 weeks later. And then from there, we can always adjust the dose. And that's one of the reasons I really like the injectable. You can be very precise with your dose increasing and decreasing. And that dose can increase or decrease on your next injection, which can be a day or two. What I also really like about injectable testosterone is that it has a ton of research behind it. So that helps me feel at rest when I'm doing a therapy with patients to make sure that they stay safe. Now, as we go through the next couple, we'll kind of compare and contrast as we go. Now, next, I really like using the cream. What's nice about the cream is for people who are needle phobic. Most of the time, I tell guys to get over it. But we do have extreme circumstances where people literally faint or they have bad reactions to the oil that the testosterone it is, or they just have a bad reaction to the injectable like a sensitivity. With the testosterone injectable, if guys have a sensitivity, we can move them to cream, or often I will just switch the carrier oil. Instead of using testosterone and cottonseed, we could use MCT oil or grapeseed oil, or even sometimes it's the ester that it's carried in. So maybe a patient doesn't do well with cypionate. There are some who claim either cypionate or enanthate tends to make them bloat more than the other. Either way, if it's placebo or not, I want to try and have the patient feel as good as possible. And with the injectables, we have multiple esters that we can try out and multiple oil bases. Now, moving over to topical testosterone, I really prefer using a compounded cream, preferably in a lipoderm base. I'm not a big fan of androgel. I think there's a lot of problems with its absorption. Unfortunately, with androgel, there is some research, and most of the research is actually not great. It's not a lot of great findings, and I think that has to do with androgel's absorption. That's another topic for another time. So I really like using a compounded testosterone cream, and for guys, I have them apply it transscrotally. Yes, they are placing it on their scrotum, and that's because that's where your testosterone is naturally produced, and the idea is let's have the testosterone enter the body at the same place where most of it is usually produced. One benefit I've seen to topical testosterone over injectable is it seems like it helps guys with their libido and sexual function. And this is most likely due to the fact that topical testosterone raises DHT. I talk about DHT being testosterone's kind of meaner older brother. A lot of the things that testosterone does, DHT does more potently, like increasing muscle and increasing our sexual function and libido. So if a guy is suffering more with sexual dysfunction and we've been using injections, sometimes we'll move him over to the cream and we'll notice a improvement in his libido. Now, with that may be a drawback. Most practitioners and doctors that I've talked to who like to use topical cream are not concerned much about the rise in DHT. Someone like myself, if I'm doing 4 or 5 clicks of a topical testosterone cream, my testosterone gets to 600 to 700, while my DHT gets closer to 250. This is 3 to 4 times the reference range and makes a lot of practitioners uncomfortable. I myself am kind of in the middle ground. I'm not really scared about it. DHT has a very bad rap for hair loss, increase in aggression, acne, and very controversial when you talk about prostate cancer. I'm not too fearful of the DHT, but this is something that I take into consideration when I'm debating on a patient using injectable versus cream. So to compare, when I'm using a cream at 200 milligrams per ml and I'm using 4 clicks a day, my testosterone gets upwards to 700 with a free testosterone close to 25 milligrams per deciliter. If I'm doing 200 milligrams injected a week of testosterone over normal doses, my testosterone gets closer to 1200 and my free is somewhere between 25 and 30. Now, my DHT on the injectable is usually 80 to 100, where on the cream, it's upwards to 250. So you can tell what happens to a lot of guys when they're using the cream. A lot of the testosterone does get converted into DHT. So this is probably one of the largest areas of contention when using cream versus injectable is the pros, side effects, risks with higher DHT. Many say that you shouldn't be concerned about the DHT. It's because what we're measuring is in the blood. And what's most important is how much of it is getting intercellularly. Now, we don't have great tests yet for measuring intercellular testosterone or DHT, so we're stuck with the blood for now. Also, another area of comparing the cream with the injectable is often the cream comes in a clicker. So basically whatever dose that you get, it is divided in 4. So if you do 200 milligrams per ml, 1 click will give you 1/4 of that dose. So if a guy is on 4 clicks and he's going too high and we want to move him down to 3 clicks, sometimes that 25% drop is too much. When we're dealing with injections, it's easy to move 5 or 10% on the injections just by moving the syringe up and down. The other area that gets complicated with topical creams is everyone has different absorption. You, me, and Bob will all absorb the cream differently. I have some patients that can do 2 or 3 clicks and their testosterone level is 1500. And I have other patients like myself who can do 5 clicks and hardly get over 1000. And there could be a wide variety of reasons for that. And it could also be that I am turning more of my testosterone into DHT. The half-life of the testosterone cream is usually 12 to 24 hours. So you do need to apply it more consistently. If you miss a dose or two, your levels will drop. And this goes back to why I said usually when I start patients, I start them on injectable first, because if I start them on cream and they apply the cream daily for 7 weeks and then they forget to apply it for 3 days and they go and get their blood test, their levels could be lower than where they started. And then they come back and then they're upset. All right, Dr. Muller, I paid you all this. I put this cream on my scrotum for 7 weeks and nothing happened. So another reasons why I'll often start with injections. But a lot of guys like the cream. I've used the cream from time to time, and I do think that it does give me a more immediate energy boost, whereas the injections take a little bit of time to kind of kick in. Now we'll move over into pellets. Pellets are definitely either you love them or you hate them. I was trained on pellets right out of school, and we did pellets on, and first did a ton of pellets. Now the pellets though is a minor office procedure. So when you go in, your practitioner will have to inject lidocaine, usually in your flank or maybe in your glute. And then they slide looks like a pen that is holding Tic Tacs in it. And then depending on your dose, they have to slide this pen underneath your skin and then deposit these little pellets. And once those pellets are in you, they're stuck there. So if your dose is too high and you become a little bit anxious, or maybe it's too low and it doesn't do anything. Unless the practitioner is willing to give you a boost or redo the procedure and take them out, which is very difficult, you're stuck with those doses for 8 to 12 weeks, depending on how your practitioner practices. So again, the only pro that I see is that it's easy and convenient. And so for people who are stubborn and will not do the injections, will not do the cream, maybe they should consider doing the pellets. I would say that raising your testosterone some is better than not raising it at all. Now, the cons and the side effects, like we said, you're doing a minor office procedure where you're getting scalpeled 3 to 4 times a year. You're most likely going to end up developing scar tissue. And a lot of the pellet procedures, you get what are called extrusions, where the pellets basically turn into pimples and pop out. This is in as much as 5% of the procedures done. And so if you went in and you had 12 or 15 pellets placed and then one pops out, you lost some of your dose. Because it's also an office procedure, you can't go swimming, you can't flex your glute. And if you decided to go swimming, you have a way higher chance for infection. And if your practitioner does a very poor job, these can get infected even if you don't go swimming. I also found it very hard to control the levels. Whereas like a guy might come in and his testosterone flies up to 2000 in his first couple of weeks, and then he slowly comes down. So on those first couple of weeks, you can expect some side effects, some moodiness, some agitation, not being able to sleep well. And then towards the end, they're definitely going to start feeling the testosterone being low. The other part that becomes very difficult is figuring out when you want to measure the patient's blood work. Do you want to try and catch them at the top, or do you want to try and catch them at the bottom? If you're doing a testosterone injections or cream, your levels are usually more stable day by day. With the pellets, your levels on week 2 compared to week 10 will be completely different. And because of those reasons, that's why I personally don't use pellet therapy in my practice anymore. I can see why some people still do out of convenience. There's also clinics that have found out ways to bill this for insurance more easily, so it's a better business model. In my clinical experience, I haven't found it to be the best way to go. Now, an option that really isn't talked about as much is oral testosterone. And the real reason with this is previously a lot of oral compounds, not only testosterone, but anabolics, when taking orally are very hard on the liver. So 2 things. 1, people will say, hey, they're really hard on the liver. And then 2, they're going to say it's not absorbed very well. Well, testosterone and decanate, and there are compounding pharmacies that found a way to get testosterone that can be absorbed. I personally have done testosterone and decanate, which is oral, and had some pretty good results with it. It's nice not having to mess with needles or cream. It's oral, like I can just take it with my supplements. It's very fast acting. It has a 2 to 4 hour half-life, so you'll often notice as soon as you take it. Sometimes I personally, and I've heard from other patients, they get some similar to fishy burps because it is oil based. So that can be a little bit uncomfortable. Because of the short half-life, if you do miss some doses, you will definitely feel it. And like the cream, because it's absorbed in the gut, there's high levels of 5-alpha reductase. So a lot of the testosterone will be converted into DHT. So a lot of the things we chatted about earlier to be worrisome about DHT happens very similar with the oral form of testosterone and decanate. Very similarly, you can see a testosterone level of 700 or 800 total and a DHT somewhere in the 200 range. The other thing that I've seen clinically, and this happened to me, is when I was on the oral, my estrogen levels dropped drastically to the point of not even being able to be read when my total testosterone was 1,000. Now, and I may just be an outlier and it may have just been that test at the time, but a lot of patients, and I've talked with other practitioners when using the oral, is it seems the estrogen stays lower. While most people think that that's a good thing, I think guys need estrogen. It's good for your bones. It's good for your brains. It's good for your cholesterol. It produces nitric oxide. It's good for your libido. We need a good amount of testosterone. I really like looking at total testosterone to estrogen ratios. And so one thing I get concerned about when taking the oral testosterone is the lower estrogen. And one of the main signs I hear from guys is they have joint pain. They feel stiff. Now, that's not everyone. You should be informed about if you're thinking about doing testosterone and decanate. So overall, you can see that I'm pretty biased with using the testosterone injections. I like cream at a close second. Now, up to this point, you're like, but wait a minute, Dr. Muller, why didn't we talk about other things besides actual testosterone replacement therapy to raise your testosterone levels, like HCG, or Clomid? Well, first, I'd say that those aren't actual forms of what we call exogenous testosterone. They're not testosterone that comes from outside the body. Both HCG and Clomid are used to help your body produce more testosterone. HCG is often done by subcutaneous injection. HCG is naturally found in women and in men in very, very small amounts. And HCG seems to hit the same receptor that LH does in our testes. And when HCG hits the LH receptor, we produce testosterone. And it also seems that the FSH receptor, which produces sperm. So while HCG does increase our testosterone, it can't get us to the levels that using exogenous can. And so I have used HCG monotherapy in guys who are younger and are wanting to preserve fertility, but it doesn't alleviate symptoms as well as actual testosterone replacement does. Now, often in the forms of testosterone that we chatted about earlier, you can add HCG alongside of it to keep guys fertile, and it also helps prevent testicular shrinkage. Now, Clomid. When I first heard about Clomid, I thought, this is it. This is the holy grail. It naturally helps raise our body's production. It's actually a fertility drug that women use, and it raises their FSH and LH, and then we produce more testosterone. It's a selective estrogen receptor modulator, meaning it binds to the receptors in the brain, and then it basically asks the body to produce more testosterone. And so while often we will see when guys use Clomid or an isomer of it in clomiphene, guys' levels go up. But again, we do not see the same kind of symptom relief that we see when we're using like an injectable or a cream. Often with Clomid, guys get lots of side effects like moodiness, agitation, depression, low self-esteem. So while on the blood work, a guy's testosterone levels go up, they don't feel better. And that's probably because it's blocking the estrogen receptor in the brain. And like we said earlier, estrogen is good. Guys need estrogen. It helps them feel connected. It helps them feel motivated. And blocking that makes men feel numb. So while Clomid is very attractive because it's oral and it helps our body produce more testosterone and doesn't shut down our actual production, it doesn't alleviate the symptoms of low testosterone as well as exogenous testosterone therapy. So I hope I provided you with a ton of information to try and figure out which therapy is right for you. I guess the only thing I didn't really cover is costs, and that's because there's a wide variety of costs in every way, shape, and form. My personal experience, I don't deal with insurance, and I think most practitioners who have been doing testosterone replacement therapy don't, because the insurance companies make it very, very difficult. They want multiple readings below 300. So if a guy is at 350, they won't cover it. And usually it's an absolute administrative nightmare, but you may be able to get it covered with some other doctor. So just a quick review. You have your 4 major areas that are the most popular, which are you have injection, you have cream, you have the pellets, and then you have the oral forms. And in my personal opinion, I really like the injections, and the cream comes in a close second. But please let us know, have you used any of these before? Have you switched from cream to injection, injection to cream, cream to pellets? I'd love to hear your feedback of which therapy has worked best for you. Thanks for stopping by, and until next time, stay vigilant, my friends, and God bless.